ratification of Korea-US FTA has been stalled for the last 4 years and 3 months. But very recently, we can find some changes on U.S. side toward the Korea-US FTA. The USA government appears to be speeding up for the ratification of the Korea-US FTA, and a U.S. Congressional Committee passed a bill seeking the ratification of Korea-US FTA earlier this week. So in today's In Focus, we are going to discuss the details of Korea-US FTA with 2 experts. Sitting on my right, Professor Ho Chan-guk from Chungnam National University. Always welcome to our program.
Good to be here.
Mm-hmm. And Professor Choi Won-mok from Ewha Women's University. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, let's start today's discussion. Well, as I mentioned very briefly, the rectification of Korea-US FTA has been stalled for a long time. Actually, 4 years and more than 4 years have been passed. But recently, the USA government appears to speeding things up for the rectification of Korea-US FTA. So I want to know how much progress they made in an effort to finalize Korea-US FTA. Professor, would you please?
Yes, the U.S. government submitted the actual KORUS FTA, Korea-US FTA, so-called, early October 3rd. But things have been moving really fast. And basically, we expect the whole thing to be done, the whole ratification process to be completed sometime next week. So things moving really fast in the U.S. Congress. So in comparison, Korean side, the pact is still pending at the National Assembly. There are 1 or 2 more steps that National Assembly members need to take to finalize ratification on Korean side.
See. So, Professor Choi, we are curious, actually, why U.S. side, American government changed their the policy or position toward the Korea-US FTA. Certainly, they be more aggressively to finalize the Korea-US FTA. What is the reason?
I don't know whether we have to call it change of U.S. policy toward Korea or not, but I think it is rather a result of natural course in the U.S. politics, although it looks a sudden haste. As you know, additional round of FTA talks in December last year has generated sort of bipartisan support in the U.S. Congress toward the FTA ratification. Because the United States side got what they wanted, but the problem was to design a system to deal with the repercussions of FTA liberalization, market liberalization. And Democrats wanted to extend the Trade Adjustment Assistance program, so-called the TAA program, to help laborers who would lose jobs and the small enterprises who would suffer damages as a result of market liberalization. So without agreement on that issue, I think Republicans couldn't get the early ratification of the FTA, but recently there was formed a sort of consensus on the TAA issue. That is why FTA bill could be submitted to the Congress without further delay.
Professor Her, as the Professor Choi explained, actually there are still the remaining procedures for the ratification of the Korea-US FTA in USA. Could you explain more about the remaining procedures for the ratification of this trade deal in USA and which stages actually they are at the moment?
The U.S. system is that any external treaty the U.S. government establishes is usually dealt with in U.S. Senate. But in the case of free trade agreement, it goes through both houses, the House of lower houses and the Senate. And so in terms of the procedure, it could be sort of rather long and problematic because you have, lower house dominated by Republicans and Senate, Democrat dominated, so forth. But in this case, the bill was submitted early October, along with KORUS as well as U.S. FTA with the Panama and Colombia. So three altogether submitted, and it's sailing through like at incredible speed. In the lower house, Republicans tend to be sort of pro free trade usually, so it's not really an issue. But the concern was Democrats who tend to pay more attention, relative sense, than workers and environmental issues and so whatnot. But as Professor Choi mentioned, the sort of renegotiation took place last year, so satisfied a lot of concerns, and also before the U.S. government to submit the bill, there's a sort of under the water. There's some sort of mutual understanding agreement established between Democrats and Republicans and the administration. So it looks like it's almost like rubber stamping that it's moving so fast. So it's the full House will pass within a day or two. Then it will pass along to the Senate, and it'll go through committee, then the full Senate vote. And the most recent news is that it might happen by mid next week, and that'll be very, very fast.
Actually, before the Korea-US FTA goes into effect, I think the rectification procedure is not the last the procedure, isn't it? What are the remaining procedures before the Korea-US FTA goes into effect in U.S.?
Yeah, I think many experts predict that the implementation bill of the KORUS FTA to be approved by the U.S. House before President Lee's summit visit to Washington, scheduled for October 13th. It's next week.
I see.
Then the Senate will pass the bill to complete the approval procedure, hopefully in time for the summit or shortly after the summit. Then I think since the U.S. side include not only ratification bill but also implementation bill, they finished their job, I think. But the problem is our side, because we have to send our bill. The bill is currently at the Foreign Affairs and Trade and Unification Committee of National Assembly, but the committee must send the bill to the subcommittee, who is supposed to review the text of the treaty. Once the subcommittee approves it, then it will come back to the Foreign Affairs and Trade and Unification Committee again. So this committee process would take about a week or more. Then I think the committee then send it to the National Assembly for the plenary session vote. Although the bill passes the full session of the National Assembly by the vote, but still we have to amend the wording of about 25 domestic laws and decrees. This legislation process will take additional time of a month or more. So probably it will be too optimistic to expect that the FTA can be implemented in time for the New Year's Day of the next year.
I see. As you know very well, there are the groups of the people who are supporting the Korea-US FTA, while there are some others who remain the opposite to the Korea-US FTA in Korea. So I want to discuss about the positions of those who are supporting for the Korea-US FTA. As far as I know, Korean government, of course, and then ruling party, Korean National Party, and the business circle, including the business organizations and the conglomerates, they are supporting for the Korea-US FTA. Professor Ho, would you please explain the logic or the reasons behind their support for the Korea-US FTA?
Basically, I think there are two sort of reasons, big pictures. Korea is wedged between China and Japan, pretty big, powerful countries. And for perhaps national security reasons, it would be good to have a strong ally outside the region. That would be one consideration. Secondly, despite the current turmoil, economic problems the U.S. is going through, the U.S. still remains the largest and the most open economy and the market in the world. So for Korea to have better access to this open, large market as a very actively exporting country is very, very important for Korean economy. So for those two reasons, a lot of people think positively of this KORUS FTA.
Do you want to add something more about the why they support?
Yeah, other than some economic or trade benefit, I think KORUS FTA codifies a whole-scale problem-solving approach. For instance, a series of age-old bilateral trade disputes, such as automobile trade imbalance between Korea and the United States, has been a very serious problem. Unethical business practices in pharmaceutical and medical service sector, and effective protection of copyright were actively addressed between Korea and the United States in the KORUS FTA. And sort of permanent solutions to that problems were sought in the form of stable and very binding FTA rules. I personally believe that at least majority of Korean citizens are well aware of the importance of this intangible benefit as well as tangible benefit in the Korea-U.S. relationship. And I believe that is why more than majority of our citizens shows strong support.
But on the other side of the coin, actually, there are a group of people who are is against the Korea-U.S. FTA. What kind of the reasons do they have for the opposition? I mean, why they do not support for the Korea-U.S. FTA?
Yeah, I think not only opposition party, but some
civic groups,
substantial number of civil society groups are opposing to the KORUS FTA. I think FTAs, by definition, generate winners as well as losers in domestic economy, although everybody is winner in international trade. So although the number of losers, I believe, is far smaller than the number of winners in Korean economy, for instance, but the FTA means only extra income for many winners, but it could mean a losing job for losers, including farmers, livestock industries, and drug companies producing generic product. So this is why losers tend to be united easily and protest harshly, and their voice is heard with a greater degree of sympathy from the general public. But I think that problem can be solved by some domestic policies.
The critics are calling for renegotiation as well. So, Professor He, would you explain more about the demands which they make?
Okay. The basic stance seems that since the renegotiation took place last year, basically, due to the demand from the U.S. side, perhaps we have the right to sort of ask for the same thing and sort of renegotiation. And there are about 10 items that opposition parties are listing in terms of
10 items,
right, that they think unfair details, such as agricultural, fishery. Also, automobile is an area that the Democratic Party members say that Korea sort of compromised too much at the renegotiation that placed last year. Then also, recently, there are sort of tension between large businesses and small and medium businesses in the area of retail, for example. So the idea is the mom and pop stores are losing their businesses, losing their means of living, because large firms are coming and opening up big stores with big discount and whatnot. So there are movement to restrict large retailers opening up large stores and so forth. So in this theater, entrance of U.S. is viewed as a sort of big, giant Walmart coming into Korean market and basically doing a lot of damage to small and medium mom and pop retailers. So, that some people here are saying that, they need to be subject to the same kind of restriction that Korean, law is imposing on Korean large businesses. And so this is sort of situation that developed since the negotiation process was over, right? So it's sort of, if this is to be introduced in the KORUS FTA, then renegotiation has to happen. And in addition, there are mentioned earlier about in the pharmaceutical, also in terms of protection of investment, investor rights, and some of those things. Some people here in opposition think too broadly defined, sort of too biased, lopsided, protecting U.S. protecting their rights over, say, Koreans' right. So there are items that are being listed, but in terms of, I think this perhaps we will talk later, but this needs to be balanced against the sort of what kind of benefit or gains, so in more broad sort of calculus.
I see. Well, as Professor He mentioned very briefly about the investment rights of the U.S., well, the critics says that, there are so-called the poisonous clause in the Korea-US FTA, such as the ISD. ISD stands for Investor-State Dispute Settlement, and the Ratchet mechanism. All those things are the representative so-called poisonous clauses in the Korea-US FTA, according to the critics' opinion, right?
Yes.
Could you elaborate, explain more about what they are?
Yes. Talking about specific claims by Democratic Party, I think the basic position is that the renegotiation that was initiated by unilateral request by the United States broke the careful balance of mutual interest under the original deal. So something should be proposed to rebalance the broken balance throughout some renegotiation. That's why they claim that additional process. And one of the topic, of course, is that the ISD, so-called Investor State Dispute Settlement Mechanism, they identify that mechanism as a sort of poisonous articles or fatal provisions, whatever we translate it. But according to that system, ISD system, foreign investors are granted with the right to initiate quasi-judicial proceedings against the host government in their own right under the FTA treaty. So opponent to this system claims that ISD may result frequent claim or frivolous claim by a big multinational U.S. corporations against our public policy measures. Such possibility itself may limit our governmental policy choices. So I believe that there could be such small possibility, I admit that, but as Professor He mentioned, I think we have to take a quite balanced view. Greater protection for investors means more investors will come in. And since this system is reciprocal, our investors in the United States territory will be protected against some arbitrary policy measures taken by U.S. federal as well as state government. So I think it's very important to have balanced view. So talking about ratchet mechanism, which is quite technical term, but I'll do my best to explain. But according to that mechanism, once the government reduces regulation in service and investment area, then government cannot return to original regulation, even though any unforeseen troubles are found after the opening of the market. So it's one-way reduction of regulation. But it should be also noted that this does apply to very limited sectors. Many public policy and social service areas, for instance, protection of children, social welfare activities, and tourism in rural area, and protection of culture, broadcasting, so forth, not subject to this ratchet mechanism. So also to be noted is that this ratchet is also reciprocal, so that will limit some possibility of U.S. measures, arbitrary measures against our investors and service providers. So I think that kind of balance we have to always have in mind.
I see. Okay. Well, time is very limited, so I ask Professor He to answer very briefly about this question. Well, we have discussed many times about the economic benefits which we can get from the Korea-US FTA. Right. Could you explain one more time?
Well, to give you the big numbers, the recent estimates are that there'll be about 350,000 jobs created, and this is a very important benefit given the sort of pretty poor job creation condition at the moment. And also it's going to have about 5% increase in GDP over a 10-year period. So those are big numbers, and then we can go into sort of electronic industry, automobile industry, and all the various industries who are going to benefit from the tariff reduction and easier access to the U.S. market.
So I would like to give the last question to Professor Choi. Well, what will Korea need to do, to achieve this smooth ratification of Korea-US FTA in Korea? And then, if possible, could you give us your personal opinion about this issue?
Yes, conservatives in Korea say Korea should speed up ratification process along with the U.S. process. On the contrary, progressives say amending so-called poisonous provisions in the signed treaty should come first before considering the ratification. So there's no sign of compromise or suggestion of compromise between two groups. I believe the responsibility lies on the side of conservatives, including ruling party and the government. So I think one way to make a breakthrough is to accept some modest suggestions made by the Democratic Party. One of them is to have modification or amendment of the Korean version of TAA program, Trade Adjustment System program. The other demand is to enact Trade Negotiation Act, by which government is mandated to go through more transparent and democratic process for the trade negotiations. I believe this kind of modest demand really necessary for the future of Korean trade system. Think about a lot of criticism was made, by people against non-transparency in the beef dispute with the United States and the FTA renegotiation process. Isn't it about time to have Trade Negotiation Act? I think that's the solution.
I see. Well, I'll give you 20 seconds. Could you say something?
I think the basic issue is whether bolstering really close relationship with the U.S. Will be good for Korea at the moment and going forward. And if one takes the positive view of that prospect, then I think this is, in big picture, a good thing to have.
I see. Well, thank you very much, Professor Ho Chan-guk and Professor Choi Won-mok. Well, today we discussed about the Korea-US FTA, and then from the discussion we found it out we will be able to gain huge economic benefits, but still there are some problems to be solved. Well, this is all for today, and then I'm Shin Sang-hyuk for In Focus, and goodbye.